And welcome, Bee Shifters. I'm John Vance, your host. On this episode, Nick Brunacini, Josh Blum, and I will be talking with Captain Phillip Grandon of the Lubbock, Texas Fire Department. Captain Grandon and a crew member of his company survived a Mayday in 2018 in a cotton warehouse. We'll talk about that incident, what's changed with him personally since then, and with the department. Let's get this conversation started with Captain Phillip Grandon on Bee Shifter. Captain Phillip Grandon, thanks for being here with us. We really appreciate this and a great opportunity to talk to you about an incident that happened back in 2018, what you learned from it, how your department made some changes after that and continues to make changes. To start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you landed at the Lubbock Fire Department.
First off, thank you so much for allowing me to tell my story once again. It did happen a while back, but still learning, and I'll be happy to share it with anybody who will listen and maybe learn some lessons. But so I've been on with Lubbock Fire Rescue in Texas for almost 14 years, and just right out of high school, went to the Fire Academy and got on when I was 20. So this is pretty much all I've ever known is the fire department. And we have 19 stations right now, currently in the process of building Station 20 and over 400 firefighters. We serve an area of about close to 300,000. And I think we run, average around 30,000 calls a year. So pretty busy. And right now I'm captain in the training division. Stepped away from shift a couple of years ago just to help other challenges that were going on in the fire department, and felt like it was a good change for a little bit. Excited to get back out on shift someday, but this role right now is keeping me pretty busy, and I'm enjoying it. So,
tell us about the incident back in 2018, and start at the beginning, the dispatch, what you had when you pulled up, and how that progressed.
Okay, so just to give a little backstory before, we had 5 other cotton warehouse fires going on in this time period. So basically from the end of December 2017, and this is now February 10th is when this happened. This would be number 6. And these are not your normal structure fire where you show up and do your thing, put it out and go back to the station, high five and talk about it. I mean, these can last 2 or 3 weeks because of the amount of cotton that is in these. And you just can't put out cotton like a normal fire. It is a very unique fire where the water can just run around it. I mean, it's so tightly compacted, and it's strange. Like, you either have to let it burn, or the way that we were doing it is we would suppress it, and the excavators would come in, take it out by the tractor load and dump it and bury it basically. And so we could be there for 2 or 3 weeks on one warehouse fire, and we're first due for these. So we're there for many hours a shift, just babysitting these big warehouse fires. By this time I'm sick of going on cotton warehouse fires. So that plays into my mindset. So that's why I tell that, just because when this happens, February 10th, about 4:15 in the morning, the tones go off and I hear the address and I just know exactly what we're going to. And just like, oh man, another cotton warehouse fire. We leave the station, and there was already another engine that was at another warehouse just a block away, babysitting this one, doing their rotation, when a worker had come up and told them, hey, we have smoke coming out of another one. So they actually got there first, just like a minute before we did. And I wasn't expecting them to get there first because I just didn't know. But anyway, they give the size up, take command, and this particular warehouse was sprinkler controlled, where the other ones weren't really. And I mean, we would show up and just flames everywhere. Those are easy choices. I mean, defensive, no problem. But this one, it was closed up, sprinkler controlled. Met with the lieutenant. We forward laid in. So I actually stopped, and my driver and husband went and to go lay in the line. So anyway, I met with the lieutenant, and he tells me what we have, and I'm checking for like a sprinkler tie-in or something, but there was not one available. So anyway, when the battalion chief showed up, he took over. He actually sent the other engine 3 back over to their warehouse, and he assigned us to go inside. But before that, we had found on the outside, there was a definite spot that was about 30 degrees hotter when we were scanning it with our thermals. So I knew where the fire was. command had assigned us to get eyes on the fire. It's what he specifically said. He didn't say fire control or anything like that. And why go into these at all? And so the reason is because you could have, especially with sprinkler control, there might just be 2 bales on fire, or there could be 100. We just don't know. So there was no life safety issue, but just to go in and basically be a scout team, that's what we were going to do. Me and my firefighter, we grab a hose line, go in directly left, just fall on the wall to the left. There was absolutely zero visibility, extremely thick white smoke mixed with steam, no heat at all. My thermal was absolutely useless. Pull it up and just white is all the screen shows. I mean, I can look down and see the hose line. It's hotter than, I mean, it's like 11 degrees this morning. So everything is very cold. And so anyway, we start making our way, trying to find it. And the first entry, we basically ended up in a spot that we just met walls of cotton, and it walled us up into like a horseshoe area, kind of a square. We were with only one exit, and noticed a lot of water on the ground, probably ankle deep. So the sprinklers had been going off for a while. And the way this building was, it was an old grain building before it was a cotton warehouse. So it kind of had a little bit of a slant to the middle of the building. That's why there was so much water. My hoseman says, hey, I'm getting low on air. So we back out to recycle, and we talked to command, tell them, we can't make it over there, but there was a worker outside. And he said, hey, if you just go straight through this door, you'll see a forklift at the kind of the end of the stack of bales. And there's a lane that runs through the middle of these buildings. And he said, you should be able to get there if you turn at that forklift. So, okay, we change bottles, get a drink, go back in. And I have 2 firefighters with me this time. We find the forklift, and I tell my other firefighter to stay here and feed me hose. So he stays there, and probably about 50 feet in is what we are at this point. And so then we make that turn. He's feeding hose. Me and my other firefighter moving forward. And I'd say we advance about 100, probably about 100 feet. And we never could see. I keep checking with my thermal. Still no heat signatures. Can't see anything at all. Just stay on this hose line. Do not get off this hose line. Well, we finally do find some heat signatures, and it's a pretty large pile of cotton smoldering. I can't really tell exactly. I think it's maybe 10 to 15 feet in front of me. I look to my left, look to my right. Nothing really right beside us. I look behind me, just kind of do all the thing with thermal checking to see, are we safe in this spot? So this is mistake number 1. I found the fire, got eyes on it like command wanted, and 0 status change for me. So Blue Card was still fairly new at this point. We've been doing it for not quite about a year. It's 2017 is when we did the training. And so we were still in some growing pains with it, still kind of dipping into the old new system. So had I done that, probably would have had a reassignment. Hey, come back out and transition. So those Blue Card procedures, I believe they could have helped with this, because it would have gave me that moment to kind of step back from what we were seeing. Or maybe command could have prompted me for that, because I had one thing on my mind at that point. We're here at the fire. We have a hose line. Let's do what firefighters do and put it out. And so, with Blue Card, put water on the fire. Let's take care of the problem. And so like in the class 2 weeks ago, in the IC class, Josh had said, he actually looked at me. He said, sometimes putting water on the fire can actually get you in trouble. And it was weird because he looked at me when he said it, and I kind of shuddered inside. And so that's why I had to tell him about this during a break. And I said, hey, you're absolutely right. Like, this happened to me. And now here I am telling you on your podcast about the story. But yeah, in this incident, that absolutely was what hurt us. So anyway, my firefighter starts putting water on the fire, and this is it's not going to put it out, but I just think, why not? We're here, let's do this. And so we're putting lots of water on it. And then after, I don't know, a few minutes of spraying, he tells me, hey, I'm getting low on air. So, okay, no problem. Instead of backing out, what do? Let me put some water on it. So I take the nozzle from him. I start spraying. Now, this is actually probably what saved our lives, because, and like I said, I don't recommend staying inside, but I knew we were straight back one turn. That's it. We didn't have to go through a maze to get there. Start putting more water on it. And probably 10 seconds after I started spraying, just a huge jolt on the hose line, and it throws us forward, and we landed on the ground. And when that happened, a couple bales had fallen to our right, and one hit me in the feet, and embers flew up right in my face. And I mean, we can't see anything, but the embers are so close to my mask, I can see them floating up past my mask. And when that happened, just the way that it felt, and I felt it on my feet, I thought my hosieman was crushed behind me. I mean, these things weigh 500 pounds a piece. And so you definitely don't want to get hit by one. And found out really quick that he was okay. It hit him in the legs, but it didn't roll over on us. It just kind of, I mean, when it fell, it just kind of bumped us basically. But I mean, so close. Like if we were just a foot over, it probably would hurt us pretty good. I mean, just immediately, I know we are in an awful spot. Like the fire was above us, but I couldn't see it because I guess it was on top of the bales, maybe the heat, but with my thermal, just nothing. So right away, we got to get the hell out of here. We turn around, follow the hose line, and just a few feet back from our position, there's a bale on top of the hose line. And I'm hoping if I just make my way over it, they're probably about 2.5 feet tall or so. There's two different kinds of bales in this warehouse. There's some finished cotton that's baled a little taller, about 4.5, 5 feet tall. And then these moat, which is lower quality. They're just big, huge blocks. But anyway, climb over it, but I don't climb over it and land on ground. I just climb up, and I keep climbing up. So I'm just like, and I pull my thermal out and just a sea of white. And I know when we're trapped in here, so much cotton had fell. So I go back down to call the Mayday and tell my firefighter I'm going to call Mayday. So say Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And I said it 3 more times and basically said, bell is falling on the line. We can't get out. Follow the line in and help us get out. Something to that effect. It wasn't a great Mayday, but I knew we were the only ones working inside the warehouse. So my immediate thought is we have to stay calm. And then I'm kind of worried because there's fallen cotton bales. I can't really tell how much has fallen because I can't see anything, but I know there's a bunch out there and I don't want to get crushed. So it's kind of like, what do? Do you stay here? Well, just shortly after I called the Mayday though, my firefighter's vibe alert starts going off. The worst feeling, like now we have to do something. We can't just sit here, which I mean, I don't know what the right choice was in that moment. We could try to go back the way we came because it was pretty hard to get up that pile. And I don't know how much has fallen behind me, which when we came back and measured it, it was about 40 feet of hose line was covered. If we go any other direction, I mean, so what in my mind from my size up, I knew there was a roll up door on the east side of the building, which basically would have been the Bravo side. We're basically pointing in that direction. Like we're in the forklift lane. If we can just go straight, we can come over because there was a big pile in front of us. If we can make our way around that, we can hit that concrete lane and just go straight and we can make our way out. So made that decision very quickly. And once we got off of our little island of concrete that we were on, we hopped over a bell, hopped over another bell, went this way. And I mean, just, it didn't take, but maybe 15 seconds. And I was completely turned around and lost. And so pretty much from there on out, it was trying to lead my firefighter around because I wanted him to conserve air and try to find a way out. Cotton collapses. It basically makes like a maze because you'll have bells that fall and they're these big blocks, some bust open. So it's really soft in some spots, but there's new walls created basically because, a partial stack will collapse and then it can be tall. Like you can have, 3 or 4 stacked on top of each other. You can't get over it. It basically makes a new wall. So this is what we were running into is we would go a direction, jump over a couple bells and meet a wall of cotton. And then we would have to change direction. And we just did this in circles for a good while. And while this is going on, command had confirmed the Mayday and activated the on-deck crew to RIT. And so they come in, they follow our hose line in, they meet my other firefighter at the kind of in the middle of the forklift in that area. And he tells them where the collapse had happened. And, I'll back up to and kind of talk about him. I 100% forgot about my second firefighter, like just completely forgot about him. Didn't ask how he was. And that's how narrow focused I became on just me and the firefighter that was with me. And that's just kind of it. I felt bad about it. I still feel bad about it. I mean, we've talked about it together and he understands, but I mean, just, you don't know how you're going to think or react in a stressful situation like that until you're actually there. We do all these trainings and stuff to prepare ourselves for it, but I don't think we're ever truly ready for it. And I mean, it'll rock you to your core. So, I mean, I would say definitely prepare for it, but it's just one of those things. I can't believe I forgot about him. But anyway, he was okay though. He did what I told him to. He stayed at that forklift. Luckily, he didn't try to come meet us. And like I said, had we left that spot when my other firefighters said we were low on air, and we would have made our way back, following the hose line, we would have got crushed by all that cotton. So, like I said, we just got lucky, honestly. RIT is going in, and they hit the pile, and they had a search rope with them. So they try to start getting on top of the pile and looking for us, and they're having a hard time getting over it because, like I said, it's kind of the way the stacks fell. It's not the easiest thing to walk over, and they were able to get out pretty far. One of the firefighters told me that he got to the end of the search rope and where it was tight and just yelling at us, and we couldn't hear anything. He kind of said he had to make the decision of whether to try to go look for us or turn back. And I was like, you absolutely made the right choice in not going out there to look for us, because you would have been lost just like we were. But just a tough choice for them. I mean, as a rescue team, which I commend them for being disciplined though, and not just being, I mean, I don't want to say being stupid, but not getting themselves in a bad situation too. Because I mean, we know reading stuff that how many Maydays have turned into worse Maydays because have gotten themselves are in a bad spot too. So a lot of small things went right in this one that made it successful, but still not a good situation. But the procedures that we have in place will definitely, if we do them and we train on them and we follow them, will make the outcome better, I believe. At this point, after traversing the cotton and trying to find a way out, my firefighter's air is extremely low, and then my vibrator alert goes off. And before, I don't know, just some time while we're trying to make our way out, he says, "I'm going to die in here," and he didn't say it in a freaked out way. It was kind of an eerie calm the way he said it. It's like he had accepted it. Try to tell him, no, we're okay. We'll just keep following. We'll get out of here. As we went though, and then my vibe alert goes off, and you just know that the clock is ticking, and you're not making any progress. And I can distinctly remember this. Like I climb up a very tall pile of cotton, and I stop at the top of it and just kind of sit there. And I start, that thought ran through my brain. I'm going to die in this place. And a lot of things will start going through your head. And it was weird because it wasn't like a super freaked out, like shaking kind of fear. It was just, you start to accept it. You start to think about stuff, think about my family, my wife, my kids, like my funeral, like how did I get in this situation? Just all these things. But when you allow yourself to do that, you kind of take yourself away from trying to survive, and you start to accept your possible fate. Like for me, I felt the feeling of wanting to give up, but it also I felt the physiological change, and it was increased respirations, just a very heightened anxiety feeling, but I felt it come on. And luckily, like I credit being in good shape, knowing my body well, constantly putting myself at an elevated state to being able to control that. And basically I had to just stop thinking about it, force myself to breathe deeply. And I mean, I set a goal of, we have got to get out of here, and we're not going to find that concrete. We're going to have to get cut out of here. And so I go back down. I mean, say a prayer, just please God help us to get out. And I find my firefighter, and just took him a different direction. And we got pretty lucky because it didn't take us long to find some stair stacked intact bales. And he was out of air at this point, but I climb up and I can feel that they haven't fallen down, and I can feel another stack behind it. So I climb up and I put my hands on top of that one. So I know, okay, we can climb up these. So I go back down, I grab him, we climb up. And we walk down that stack a little ways, and then finally we see a wall beam. And so immediately I'm just like, we're going to have to jump down. And there's about a 2-foot gap in between the bales and the wall. We jump down, it's about 10 feet up. So not too terribly tall. And we get on the wall and start just banging on the wall. And I radioed that we were on the wall. Command confirms it, sends a truck crew who was outside around the building, because he asked where we were. And I was like, I have no idea, just send somebody around. And so they ended up finding us fairly quickly, though. And I run out of air at this point, and I could hear them finally hitting on the other side of where we were. One of the guys hit it with an axe with the pick in and was able to pierce the building a little bit, and they could see our flashlights, so they knew where to cut. So they had a rescue saw, fired it up. It fired up real quick, and I mean I could see the sparks were like right in my face. I mean, this was a small gap, but I always say it's one of the most beautiful sights I ever saw, because I knew we were going to get out. And it took them a few minutes to cut that hole. It was a very heavy gauge steel in this building. But once they got us out, though, just, man, what an emotional feeling. I mean, it was, obviously I was so happy to be out, but I was so angry at the same time, because one, how did I let myself get into this spot? I'm sick of these cotton warehouse fires. I almost died for cotton. And, it was tough too, because I mean, it was 11 minutes and 52 seconds. So from time of Mayday to time of out. So it was a fight, no doubt. Like I said, a lot of things went right. I think by the grace of God, are we here for sure, but a lot of lessons in it could have been prevented. Yeah, I absolutely think so. No doubt. That's pretty much the gist of what went inside, though. What
was your physical condition and your firefighters' physical condition when they got you out?
We had only breathed smoke for a few minutes. My firefighter probably 5, me only maybe 2 or 3. So we didn't breathe smoke for a real long time. No injuries. I had pounded the wall pretty hard, and I think I almost broke my hand, but no, yeah, nothing bad. So anyway, we got on a carboxyhemoglobin monitor just to see what our CO levels were, and mine was like 6%, and his was 28%, which is getting pretty high. Had we not found what we did with those stair stack bales, had it been another wall and sent us another direction like we had been doing the whole time, I don't think he would have made it much longer as far as his ability to cognitively think and follow me. He probably would have started just, I mean, we've heard the stories, and even, for y'all in Phoenix, Brett Tarver, what happened to him, it would have overtaken him. And then eventually, I mean, who knows what happened if he would have went off. I would have definitely probably went to go try to look for him, and then it would have happened to me. So it was just so close. We found what we needed to find at the right moment. But we got on oxygen, went to the hospital just to get checked out anyway. But overall, no physical injuries.
And your third crew member, who was standing by at the forklift, did he just exit out did he exit when the Mayday happened, or did he stay inside, or what happened with him?
He stayed inside for a minute. Rick got activated pretty quick, and he followed the hose line and met them kind of halfway. And he was trying to tell them where he thought, because he could hear it. He heard the collapse happen. And so he was trying to tell them, and then we have these things called pack trackers that when our passes going off, you can kind of see the general direction, which we didn't really have our passes going off. We kind of turned them off here and there, but it was so hard to hear. My radio was getting blocked. So every time command would call me, I could hear him, but I would try to transmit, and you can hear on the radio traffic, it's just staticky and buzzy, and you can't make out what I'm saying. And my radio, I wasn't given good transmissions anyway. I was probably saying, I remember saying, we're getting low on air. We're trying to make our way out, is basically what I kept repeating. Like I said, my focus was really just trying to navigate that place. And I mean, in stressful situations, you really do lose like your ability to like define details and fine motor skills, all those things that they talk about. They kind of leave you, and you really start to just think about that one thing of, I got to survive.
Just so everybody understands the building that you were working in those conditions, how big was that building about?
This one was 360 feet by 150 and no windows. It had 4 large roll-up doors on each side of the building, and I think most sides also had a man door next to that roll-up door, and built in 1950, very heavy gauge metal, pretty tall as well, but it was sprinkled. So, and the sprinklers were weird though. It was like a fine mist almost, more than like heavy raindrops, but there was definitely a lot of water coming down, and it was mixing. You had a lot of steam mixing with the smoke, so it made it extremely thick smoke, cold smoke, and it was pushed all the way to the floor. And that was another reason why we couldn't hardly see anything through our thermal. It was just not much heat in that smoke.
Early on, you talked about zero visibility, pretty much so as soon as you went into the building.
Oh yeah, like we could tell the moment we walked in. I told my firefighter, "Do not get off this hose line." There was definitely that heightened sense of just we got to be careful in here. So it was really no rush for anything that we were doing, but there was definitely some red flags there that just didn't take into account. I mean, we work in zero visibility all the time, right? So
and I think
let's go.
I think when we were talking, you talked about the cold smoke thing. I think that people who haven't worked in that cold smoke environment before, I think there's a lesson learned, that you said when you were here at class a couple weeks ago, that the smoke was all the way, zero visibility, all the way to the floor because of cold smoke. So that's a little bit different. Usually we can, if you get a foot or two off the floor, usually you can see something. In this case, it's like, no, there's zero visibility, cold smoke. It's going to push all the way to the floor. So that's another factor, just to consider.
Absolutely. You can still get easily lost in it. I mean, it may not be dark black smoke, but that thick gray smoke is just as easy to get lost in.
You got a very powerful story that the entire U.S. Fire Service can learn from, and that we all need to learn from. And you mentioned it, the Brett Tarver incident. I mean, two different building types, but it was still, cold smoke, operating pretty far into the building, crews run out of air. I mean, we can tie those together, and I don't know how much longer, in our industry, we have to be the one to bump our head before we do something different. So I'm glad that you're sharing what you're sharing, because hopefully it makes a difference for somebody else. With that said, I'd like to talk a little bit about, your experience when you were here at a trainer class 2 weeks ago, and connecting the dots for you now compared to what maybe you were thinking or knew when this event happened.
So I've taught this, I've shared my story and basically taught a Mayday class for new recruits, academy students, and people in my department. And it's always task level based, and kind of had the message with, Maydays are going to happen. That's part of our job. So we have to be so prepared for this and do all these things, which I do think is necessary. But I think, and I may be botching this, you may need to correct me. What you said is answering a why question with a what answer. And I feel like that's a lot of what I was doing, and not really looking at the big picture. And the blue card stuff, looking at how could this have helped, and with obviously me, doing the status change, but even before that, and nothing against the IC at the time. He's a good chief, and like I said, it was just still a new process, and we were getting used to it. But the CAN reports, asking for regular CAN reports, because we were in there 15 plus minutes each time, and I don't know if I ever got a CAN report asked. So had that happen, it might have helped me to reset my mind as well, because we get so or fixated on our task and fixing the problem as firefighters that we can lose that big picture mindset. And I think asking for that CAN report, it allows me as an officer to kind of step back, detach for a second, and really think about what I'm doing in that moment instead of just so on the task. And I mean, it's hard to say if that would have changed anything, but I do believe though that could have helped for sure, because him sending us in there, I mean, it was, like I said, sprinkler controlled cold smoke fire. When you see flames coming out of a building, your sense of this could be bad is a lot more, or a lot higher. But this one, it just seemed kind of tame, but it was definitely not. So I think we have to slow down a little bit and It's cotton, like I said. For one, I take a lot of responsibility too. I shouldn't have pushed us that far in there at any time. I could have said, you know what, this ain't worth it. We can't find it. Let's open up some doors, try to get some smoke out of here. Being that I was a little bit mad about this fire too didn't help either. My attitude was pretty poor. So
what was the outcome at the end? I mean, after the Mayday was cleared and everything else, so you recovered from that. How did the incident end? I mean, with the cotton and the sprinkler and everything else.
So after we left, they called other units up, and they basically just did not go in, and they sprayed water from the outside with, they set up monitors, got it, and opened up all the doors too, to let air out a little bit and get some of that cold smoke out, where they could suppress it enough to then where the process starts of getting excavators in there to take all this cotton out. And so this particular one, I believe, was cleared on February 28th. So it started the 10th and they cleared the 28th. So like I said, these are very long extended incidents. But as a department, I mean, it was basically just don't go in these cotton warehouse fires.
It's crazy. You said it. So you had a 2-week fire, and the structural service uses 15-minute work cycles, basically. Yeah, they don't match up.
Because you have to. I mean, we would have a unit on scene 24 hours a day. After the usually it was one, but there was flare ups, and so what we would do when there was a flare up is we would go inside and find it and put it out, and then come back out. And some of these, I mean, we're climbing over piles of cotton to put fire out, and that probably wasn't just the smartest thing either, looking back on it. But we were there to do a job, and we were doing it. And
yeah,
I mean, when you're out there for hours and hours, you can get a little bored sometimes, and so we would just put water on the cotton. Like I said, it's not going to go out until they take it all out, or you just don't put water on it all and let it completely burn.
Is it an endothermic thing, the way it starts?
So this particular fiasco that was going on while we kept having them over and over was when they bale the cotton, they compress it at the gin. Sometimes there can be part of the machinery can throw a spark, and if it does and it gets trapped inside, it can sit there and build for days before anybody knows that it's a hot bale, is what they call it. And there was just multiple hot bales coming in these warehouses, and they could put several thousand bales in one of these warehouses. So you have multiple points of origin throughout a warehouse. I mean, we just a huge fuel load and extremely hard to put out.
So yeah, back to the time thing, hindsight, what you know now, what can you share with people from your experience and what you know about the training and what you've done now about, just the whole slowing down piece and how we should address and deploy on these cold smoke fires, whether it's in a cotton facility or rolled paper facility or, whatever it is. I mean, you were there, they're there for 2 weeks. So it's like, are we really going to do anything in the first 5 minutes anyway? Or should we slow down and make sure that we have a plan in place to do something? And hindsight's easy, right? But I think you can share something here because everybody's got some kind of facility like that, whether it's rolled paper or cotton or a Walmart distribution center. I mean, they're similar.
So one is definitely we need a plan first of how we're going to do this. I mean, these facilities are very large, and we were in there by ourselves, took one point of entry, which the way the cold smoke acted, and I know we're always afraid to open up a building because of, modern fireground principles that we want to eliminate the flow path and not give this building air. So we kind of did. I mean, we had it shut up. We were not getting any of that smoke out. And I really think we need to figure out a way to get that smoke moving. I would have begged for some heat though in that moment, so I could have seen something on my thermal. I know that kind of probably sounds weird and probably not smart, but I mean, if you can get that smoke moving and get it out and help yourself with visibility, that would probably be one way to manage that visibility component. Because I mean, it's so easy. It's so easy to get lost in that cold smoke. And if it is sprinkler controlled, I think I do know after they did open up the doors, the fire did flare up in one of the sides of the building. So, but it's not like completely out of control, but it did. So there was some fire that had started, which, I mean, but it would have got that smoke moving. So I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
We used to have reoccurring fires and pallets and mulch and stuff like that. But if it was an inside thing like that, and you heard Garrison talk about it, we would slow it down. We'd open the doors, especially if it was sprinkler controlled. And remember, this is before, like I said, we're old. So it was nothing for us to open everything back in the day. We didn't know what a flow path was. And then the part where you're pissed off is you keep going back and doing the same thing and thinking it almost like this isn't our job, really. You guys have these bales that you load up and cause these problems all the time. You're the ones that are going to have to be to fix it. We just happen to have apparatus that moves water. So it would almost be a deal where you think, okay, open the doors and we're just going to pull all this out and we're going to make a big pile of wet cotton. I mean, that is kind of it's a zero value fire once the sprinklers go off. What do they do with the cotton then? Do they wash it and reclaim it, or they haul it to the dump? I mean, that's kind of why I asked what happened at the end. We take all this risk with our lives, and then at the end, the outcome's exactly the same. Southwest Supermarkets, they hauled the thing to the dump. And they knew that was going to happen before Tarver had his Mayday. So it's almost like we use the same approach, and I guess we're responsible for that too, because fire, bad water, good. I mean, so that's the initial attack works great because it happens so fast. It stabilizes the thing. When you get to something like a cotton warehouse, it don't do it. We used to have them on the west side here forever. Arizona used to do cotton. That was a big crop we had. And they would get those bales, and this is the old school. I mean, the fire truck downstairs would go to it. Is once they identified which ones were hot, is the owners took them. And they would have pitchers of water that they would use to extinguish them and dig out these hot spots to save however much they could of the thing. But yet this is back in the 70s. So today we would just forklift them and mull them over and with foam.
Yeah, we have, I don't know how many in the city, probably close to 100, if not more, of these very large cotton warehouse fires. I mean, there's different businesses that run them, and there was a particular type of cotton that they don't allow anymore. It's the very low quality moat. That's, I mean, not much better than dryer lint, and it burns very fast and very hot. And that's what a lot of these had in them. And since then, we hadn't had really any issues. So that was one improvement. Is I think they were basically, the city made it to where you can no longer store moat within the city limits.
They used the fire code to fix the problem.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we still have, other more higher quality cotton that's stored, and lots of seed facilities too. So when we get fires and other ones, they just nothing like what we've had with this problem. But that was one. And then I think we knowing what we know now, we're not going to risk lives to go in to do this. And if we do have to make entry for whatever reason, because the workers, they will take forklifts in there while it's burning to get this stuff out. They'll start removing stacks of cotton, and yeah, we have to be pretty proactive to get them out as well, and just no more, like, get out.
How are you guys doing now, like, with the after effect of the thing?
Do you mean on, like, personally?
Yeah, they had you, your crew, your buddies, everybody was working together that day.
Yes, sir. So I'm no longer with that crew anymore, but we were together for a while after, and it was a process for sure. I mean, it was a constant replay in my mind, and had a really hard time sleeping for a long time. Would have like dreams of being collapsed on, and just I still had like just this heightened sense that wouldn't go away. So that was part of not being able to sleep for a long time, and struggled with that, and also had just some bad. I've developed a pretty bad attitude as well over that, just on a department level, I guess, with the way that I thought things were handled afterward. And it's not really anything on our administration. Like, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus or anything. It was just my perception. I should have had conversations with people that I didn't, and I allowed it to fester inside me. But but it also ignited something in me too, where I don't want this to happen to anybody else, and really started studying line of duty deaths and close calls, and just like, why did we survive? Like, what was the factors that helped us survive in this? And kind of just really developed. I already had kind of a passion for training, but it ignited it as well. So I don't know, just hoping that people will be. I mean, like I said, so Dr. David Griffin with Charleston 9 had done his presentation like a day and a half before this actually happened. He came to Lubbock, did his presentation, and over in his presentation, he said, "My friends died for a bunch of furniture." I know what he means. I almost died for cotton. And that same old story we keep on telling. Why do we keep doing this to ourselves? And I mean, I know I'll risk a lot to save his life for sure, but man, what are we doing?
Yeah, sometimes we need to protect ourselves from ourselves.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to cover that we didn't cover?
You know, training for Maydays, for sure. Do the survival stuff, all those but don't get too detailed with it. Knowing what I know and being through one, if you have Mayday techniques that are so intricate and detailed, it's not going to happen that way. You're going to be so singularly focused, and not just the person, the victim, but the rescuers as well, and have your fitness level up. That'll help you so much, and your equipment well maintained. I mean, we had a internal combustion saw start right up on an 11-degree morning, and that's because those dudes take good care of their equipment. Everything is well maintained and ready to go. And I would say also on a maybe department level, if you're not doing blue card, have something where you have a plan to continuously get some kind of status updates and checks in, because that reset of what's going on and being aware, I believe, will be able to help you to make a decision. Because sometimes, you know, oh, they got it. They're good firefighters. They know what they're doing. From the level of looking in at me, I was so focused on what I was doing. Like I said, I lost that big picture view. So as the ICU commander, whatever, man, check in on your guys and do it regularly, and don't feel bad about it.
You know, it's a shitty event. What's the most positive thing that came out of it so far for you personally?
I would say, well, I mean, I have a very high appreciation of being alive. So
a little more gratitude for the world.
Yeah.
That's good.
I try not to let the little things get me down too bad anymore. So yeah, I definitely came out of it just with a different view. I just really want to like take care of my department, my guys. I want them to be very good at their jobs, because, you know, and I took this job serious before this happened. So I was into training and into the job. I mean, but I still got caught though. So it's almost one of those things where you absolutely cannot be complacent. I want them to have that same level of seriousness about this. And you know, just take my story. I mean, everything we do is for a reason, for sure.
Well, we really appreciate you talking about this and sharing your story, because we hope other people will hear it and maybe make some of those changes that you talked about that moved your department and moved you personally in a positive direction. And, you know, we learn from each other, so we don't have to repeat the same thing that you went through.
Absolutely. And thank you again so much for giving me a platform to tell my story once again.
Thanks for telling it.
All right, Timeless Tactical Truth. We're going to shuffle the deck and pull out one of Alan Brunacini's Timeless Tactical Truths. And this one is: the system requires the IC to be an order giver and the workers to be order followers.
That is how you're able to develop and implement a single incident action plan. Is the IC takes command of the event. As part of that, they size it up. They determine what action needs to be taken, and then they take it within the scope of their own company. And as later arriving units get there and stage, then level 1 staging provides that break from responding to being assigned directly into the incident scene, and that gives the IC the opportunity to determine and triage and say, Engine 2 is staged west. I'm going to give you this assignment with a task, location, and objective. And that's the way we fill out the IAP for the incident.
I think the folks giving orders and receiving those orders too need to be part of that feedback loop, that if the order doesn't make sense or they're not clear on the order using the order model, or if conditions are changing, they need to let the IC know that, because they're on the same team and making these decisions. The IC is ultimately making the decisions, but it's with the input of the companies operating in the IDLH.
Yeah. So once that company is given an assignment, task, location, and objective, again, we only want to hear back from them, besides repeating it through the order model to verify they got the assignment. We only want to hear back from them when they can't do it or when they finished doing it. So when they can't do it, it's priority traffic. And when they have finished doing it, it's status change. So it just keeps it really clean. And any of those all come out as a CAN report. And a big piece of the CAN report is the needs at the end that really helps the incident commander that's giving the assignments. That's what drives the incident action plan. You know, we need another priority traffic. We need another line on the second floor for fire control. Well, the incident commander is going to give that assignment to somebody else on the fire ground.
The review and revision of the IAP is equal parts looking at it. That's why we put the IC inside a command post at that point. So they're looking through the windshield at the critical factors, and then they're marrying that to the CAN reports they get back from those forward operating units. And together, that paints a picture of the current situation status and what needs to happen next. So you're correct, Vance, that it starts off, I give a bunch of orders to get people into action. Once that action's taken, now I have to sit back and evaluate the effectiveness of it and listen to the reports from those task level units back and forth, like Josh said. And that's the game we play.
We would like to thank Captain Grandon for his honest and riveting account of what happened at this Mayday event. And as always, we hope that learning from others will help prevent another Mayday from happening in your department. If you've got something like this that has happened to you, please let us know. We'd like you to be able to share your experiences with our B-Shifter listeners. And if you got something out of this episode and you have not subscribed already, please click the subscribe button. And if you can, tell a friend about us too. Until next time, thanks so much for listening to B-Shifter. Please be safe.